Okay. All right, moving right along. My name is Daniel Wilkinson. Most of you know me, but I'm the Workforce Engagement Coordinator here at Hire. Also with me today moderating questions is Laurel Donahue, our Program Manager. And we have special speakers today, Hillary Lucas, who's a job developer at Catholic Charities in Cleveland, Ohio, and Kira McCarthy, who is the Senior Employment Specialist at IRC in Baltimore. To get started, just a few logistics. We'll have 2 presentations from our guest speakers, followed by a time of questions. And the way we'd like you to handle the questions is just to type the questions into the question chat box on the right-hand side of your screen, as we've done in past calls. And Laurel will be moderating the questions. And when we get to the question times, she'll go ahead and read out questions. And we'll probably take turns going back and forth between the speakers. At the end of the call, we'll have some time where it can be a little bit more interactive, and we can unmute some of you. You can share ideas, things you're trying, progress you've made since our last call in terms of implementing consultative selling. So hopefully we'll have some time for discussion as well. And finally, we'll post the slides and recording on our online forum, the Torch Group, and that way you'll be able to access this in the future. If you're new to the group, I'll send you an invite to the Torch Group by close of business day Friday. We do have some new people to the group from both Maryland and also other states as a result of some consultative selling workshops that we've done in the past couple months. So welcome to those of you who are new. So last time we had a community practice call, you all voted that you wanted to talk about follow-up, which is the final step, the 4th step in the 4-step roadmap of consultative selling, which we've been discussing for the past several months. As Alan Anderson of DTG EMP shared with us in Omaha last year, follow-up is about delivering on and supporting what you promised. Effective follow-up results in successful placements. It results in successful retention for our clients. It results in long-term employer partnerships, and ultimately should lead to more job opportunities and better job opportunities for our clients. So there's 3 aspects of follow-up that we wanted to highlight today. First of all, follow-up is follow-through. It's providing solutions that match employer needs. It's making the right client match, and it's providing the support that you promised. Secondly, follow-up is keeping in touch. It's what we usually think of as follow-up. The 60-day check-ins, the 90-day check-ins. It's making sure the client is still working, finding out any problems or challenges that have arisen, and providing that post-hire support to employers. Thirdly, follow-up is creative engagement. It's finding ways to stay on employers' radar, not missing any employment opportunities, and creating opportunities that can double as follow-up activities and job development activities. Some examples of creative engagement are job fairs. Many sites around the country host job fairs on site or sometimes partner with other local refugee agencies to do a job fair for employers. That can be a great opportunity for your clients to practice speaking to employers, practice getting ready for an interview, handing out their resume, all of those sorts of things. Employer appreciation events like networking breakfasts or other ways of appreciating employers, involving employers in World Refugee Day, having employer advisory boards where you're getting employers' insight and advice about the types of employment opportunities you might want to pursue in your area, as well as getting their insight on their experience with your refugee clients and what you can do to improve your job readiness and support your clients and employers better. Creative engagement can also look like engaging employers as volunteers. One organization that does a great job with this is Upwardly Global, as well as a lot of other organizations out there. But I know Upwardly Global has employers come in and do mock interview workshops, help refugee clients with resumes and other types of job readiness. And of course, when you bring employers into the door, when they get to know your clients, learn their stories, see the skills that they have, that's actually a great job development strategy as well. Another idea that may be new to you, which we're going to highlight today actually, is employer happy hour, where you plan a happy hour in your city and invite both employers you already work with as well as new employers that you're reaching out to. And that can be a good way to engage employers. So what I like about follow-up is it can change kind of the linear model we've been talking about, the 4-step roadmap, into more of a cycle. And so we've talked about prospecting, how you find the jobs. We've talked about needs analysis, where you meet with the employer and find out exactly what they need. The selling, where you bring back a solution to them, and then the follow-up, delivering on what you promised and supporting. And ultimately, follow-up should lead back to prospecting or back to finding more job opportunities. And so that's why I think follow-up, it may be the most underappreciated part of the process. And oftentimes I think there can be a temptation to get lazy, to make follow-up just about checking the box, making sure people are working after 60 days. But often we forget about just the importance of that regular contact with employers and the opportunity that it can be to make sure that we're finding out about all the job opportunities that might be good for our clients and continuing to build relationships with employers, not just that might hire once or twice, but employers that are actually invested in the work that we do, that understand the communities that we work with, and that are really committed to hiring refugees on an ongoing basis. So here to talk about the first two of those elements, about delivering on what you promised and keeping in touch with employers, is Hillary Lucas from Cleveland, Ohio, and I'm going to hand it over to Hillary now. Go ahead, Hillary.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening in today. I just want to let you know we'll be going over selling without promising, making the match, and keeping contact. And most of this you probably already practiced, but hopefully we can spark some new ideas and new ways of looking at how you go through your steps to make the perfect placement. So first we have, let's see here. Dan, did you give me the control?
Yes, you should have control now. Let me know if it works. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't think it's working, Dan.
Not working? Okay. I can go ahead and do the slides for you, no problem.
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, so first is selling without over-promising. We want to keep it general to start. You've completed your needs analysis, you've met with the company, and you know the positions they have open and exactly what they're looking for. At this point, you don't want to suggest specific clients because that could kind of shoot yourself in the foot. You never know if that client is going to be the perfect match until they get started. So keep it general. Talk about your agency support services and how you can be a good partner with the company. So remember, the company is buying your agency and the services you can provide, not directly the client at this point. So next we'll move on to selling without over-promising. You want to make the catch, and you need to hook the business. And what I mean by that is you build a trust and you build a relationship business to business. So here's where you have on your professional hat, and you are acting as a business professional. You can take care of the client needs in later steps of the process, but right now you're catering towards the employer. That way you can hook them into buying what you're selling. The next thing you want to do is give them the line. So ways that you can do this is offer examples of previous successes or ways you've overcome barriers in the past. Employers are usually very nervous to get started with a new company, especially a refugee services department, but just because of unfamiliarity with refugees. So anytime you can offer an example of a barrier and ways another company and your agency have overcome it together will give more trust to the company you're looking to meet with. And finally, the sinker, you are going to move into community participation. And what I mean by that is your relationship with the employer is part of a greater community, whether it be your city or the refugee movement in your area, anything. You want to get them involved and let them know they're not the only ones. That will build trust, and then you can name drop if that helps. And not in a negative way, just kind of if you're working with one industry, mention a couple other companies within that industry you're already working with successfully. And we've even gotten to the point here at Catholic Charities where we've offered contacts at other companies as a positive reference to help gain more support from the new company. Then we move into making the match. So we call them draft picks here at our office, and it's kind of like drafting your NFL fantasy league, or think of you being a coach and you have to draft the new teammates. So you want to take a look back at the office at your client list, see who needs to be placed in a position, and then side by side you have your employer list who's looking for gaps to fill in their employment needs. And you want to pick your clients according to their skills. And you do that by pre-screening them, whether it be previous experience or training you can provide at your site. We like to take tests and test our clients on do you have skills, where are your language levels, and in the back of our minds we already know which companies have the specific need that we can fill with this individual client. Then we move into career counseling, where you sit down with the individual and you have the company you want to place them at in mind, and you kind of test their skills out, and you give them advice on, do you have enough English skills? These are the cultural expectations of the work site. Do we need to go over hygiene or dress code, things like that, and then lead into your mock interviews, knowing what the company will look for and the responses that you think the client should be able to give. Then making the match, the second step is the initial meeting. Personally, here at Catholic Charities in Cleveland, we never start with an initial interview. We start with a tour. And the reason we do that is to build comfort and just a good relationship to get started between the clients and the employer. And it's much, much harder for the employer to dismiss an individual if they already know them personally. And the tour gives them the opportunity to show their job to the client and the client to give an appropriate reaction. This is also a good time for you to troubleshoot if you notice in the tour that a client is not reacting in the way you expected, or maybe the expectations of the job itself are not what the client wants. Then you can kind of go back to the office and make some adjustments in your draft picks. Also, you're going to, on the tour, be able to sell the client's skills. So if the client is looking like a good match, here's where you're going to speak to the employer in person and say, here we have Mohammed, and these are the skills he brings to the table from his country and what he's done in our classes so far. And then you further plug your agency support services for future follow-up and even orientation, interview prep, tax forms, all sorts of that stuff. And then from making the match, we move into keeping contact. So the first thing you need to do is build a relationship with the employer as the primary contact. And we all know that employers have many people they contact to fill their gaps, but you want to act as that first go-to person. And the way you can do that is by thinking of yourself sort of like a staffing agency. And while we don't have all the abilities of just filling every gap with as many people as possible, we are able to provide a lot more services than just your average applicant. So we're there to back up the client and fill the employer's needs. And it's a lot easier for the company to contact you directly every time they have an employment need, as opposed to posting it on Indeed and Monster and all these places, waiting for a response to come through. You should always gauge your professional and casual relationships with your employer. You're going to have different people you work with in different industries, and you have to know them professionally to build the best relationship and personally. So some people are going to respond better to a well-written email and a phone call. Others, you might be able to send them a text and take a van full of people out there the next day. So gauge your relationships and keep a direct line of communications open in whatever style you need to communicate. Just make sure the employer is comfortable calling you or emailing you with any issue, and you can do the same. All right, and then we want to make sure that we're following up in the keeping contact process. Here at Catholic Charities, we do a 2-week report as our standard. 2 weeks is kind of you're past the honeymoon phase and you've seen the skills and some progress should be being made. We tend to do them over email, but you can also do by phone or personal visit. If things are going wrong, always go out there in person. It just further shows the employer you're there for them and their support. You need to look at the employer satisfaction as well as satisfaction because both play an important role, and check the progress. If the client is not progressing fast enough for the employer, you may have to make adjustments, or there may be some additional training you can assist with. And then keeping your employer list up to date is always really important, but we don't want to bombard them. So ideally, referencing it monthly is good. If you need to do it more or less, personal preference, but keeping your employer list is very important so that you're keeping the line of communication open and you can continue placing people or troubleshooting as needed. A good idea that I heard when we were in Omaha was a agency in Michigan has a candy bowl strategy, and they were speaking about how they have a few companies that the way they check in is they go in person and they actually bring some candy to the employer. And it's a good way to keep the positive relationship flowing and keep that contact. And I liked how creative that was. I think we can all be more creative with our contact. And finally, attending company events. You know, all companies are going to have hiring fairs, new strategies for networking in your city, board meetings. It's always important to go to those. Even if you feel like your time is tight, showing your face at those events will show that you are dedicated to the company. Some of the hiring fairs you do need to take clients to, but in most cases, you're representing your agency and your brand as a business person. So don't take clients to everything, just show up and show them that you are there for the company and you can later fill the needs. Keep in mind it's a positive partnership over the placement because we don't want to just be throwing anyone in to fill their gaps. You want to make sure the partnership stays strong. So when there are good things that happen, it's reciprocated, and when trouble comes up, they know that the agency can fix it because you've built that trust. And ultimately, you just need to do what works best for you, your team, and your agency.
All right. Thanks, Hillary.
Yeah, thank you.
We're going to turn it over to Kira McCarthy, who's here with me in the Hire Studio in Baltimore, Maryland. And she's going to talk to us about IRC's Employer Happy Hour events. Go ahead, Kira.
Great. So thank you so much, Hillary, and thank you, Danielle. I'm really excited to be here presenting an example of what I think is creative engagement, like you were speaking to a little bit earlier, Danielle, which is our Employer Happy Hour. And so our Employer Happy Hour has replaced what we used to do as an appreciation event. We found that it was difficult to sort of coordinate the appreciation luncheons that we were doing because, first of all, calling it appreciation made it difficult to invite new employers. We also found that it was really difficult to confirm just as how many people were going to attend, which made it difficult to coordinate food and things like that. And then we also found that we had different variations of partnerships in the room, which made it difficult to know exactly what to present on. So all that to say, we decided we would try something new, and we came up with the idea of the Employer Happy Hour. And we just completed our second happy hour this past May. And we found that this was it was a way to kind of engage employers in a more casual setting and also acted as a networking opportunity for the employers themselves. So in the room, we had both strong employer partners that we were sort of acting as an appreciation for them, and then also welcoming new employers. And so this mix allowed for past partners to network with these new employers and kind of tell them a little bit about why working with IRC and hiring refugees has been successful for them. And so our goal this year was to re-engage some past partnerships and really appreciate them, and then also identify at least 5 new employers that we could build a strong partnership with. So I just want to talk a little bit about organizing the event because although it was different coordination than an appreciation luncheon, it still definitely takes quite a bit of work. So what goes into it is identifying a location, getting food, choosing alcohol, coordinating different decorations, and then sending out invitations, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about later. And so for us, none of this kind of would have been possible without the help of our Employer Advisory Board, which is a group of employers and job developers in the area who take a large role in helping us to plan the event. So one of the members of the board actually donated the location to us, which was a hotel downtown. Another one of the board members was able to donate the food and the snacks. So that really helped us to get to focus on sending out invitations and creating really engaging decorations. And all members of the board really worked to engage their networks in order to really identify some key new employers. So to make this, just to speak a little bit more about sending the invitations, so on the, the picture on the bottom that you're looking at is the save the date that we sent like a month and a half to 2 months before the event. And then the picture on the top right was the picture that we used for the invitation that we started sending out about a month in advance. And then we also sent personalized emails to employers telling them that we really hope to see them there. And then we also sent out reminders the week of the event and the day of the event. So we were really bombarding people with emails reminding them and telling them how much we would appreciate seeing them there. And so we also decided at the event to choose one member of our team to filter all of the communication and all of the different employers that we received. And so then after the event, the one member of our staff who had received all the business cards and who we had only handed out her business card could then filter between the employment specialists, the different people who we had met with at the event. And this allowed for really ensuring that everybody who was there received a thank you email within 24 hours of the event. It also meant that that person, when they were in touch, were trying to schedule a time when we could meet, maybe give the employer a tour of our office if that's something that they're interested in doing, or maybe setting up a tour at their facility to begin building the partnership. And then at those meetings was when we really started talking in detail about what the employer's needs are, kind of like what Hillary was talking about earlier. At the event itself, we kept it really general and really just individualized the conversations. But then these meetings post the event were really when we could talk further about needs and then set up some candidates for them. So finally, just to talk a little bit about outcomes, we were really excited about the outcomes of this year's event. We had 46 people attend the event, 34 of which were employers, and they represented 22 different companies. 11 of those companies were strong partners, and 11 of them were completely new companies. We were able to schedule meetings with 8 of those 11 new companies. And then from all the attendees, we were able to do 39 interviews with clients within the first month, which resulted in 25 placements within the first month after the happy hour. So we really felt like it was a successful event. Some of the other things that we kind of saw as outcomes was by sending out so many invitations, we really were able to engage all of the members of our employer network, even those who were not able to attend. So I had a couple of people who I sent invitations to and personalized emails to, and they got back to me saying, like, we really appreciate you contacting us. Unfortunately, we can't come, but we actually have housekeeping positions right now. So we were able to get some people placed who were not even attending. And additionally, we also found that some of the new employers who were attending went out to their networks after the event ended and was able to tell some of the employers that they knew about this. And we actually were able to get 2 placements from an employer who didn't attend the event but actually had just heard about it from a new employer who had attended. So we really feel like it's a good way to appreciate past employers and give them sort of a role in helping us spread the word about hiring our clients, and then it's a really great way to also engage a lot of new employers. And it really wouldn't be possible without the strong partnerships of the Employer Advisory Board that we have. So thank you so much, and I'm excited to answer any questions.
Thanks, Kira, and thanks, Hillary. Now we're going to answer some of your questions. Laurel, do you have some questions for us? Is Laurel with us? All right. Let me see if I can find the questions here. Could you maybe go check with Laurel over there? All right. Why don't we do this? If you have a question, could you raise your hand and I'll see if I can unmute you? And we'll do it that way. I'm not sure why I'm not hearing Laurel on the line. So if any of you would like to ask a question, raise your hand. There's a little raise hand function there, and I'll unmute you. Looking for some hand raises.
Okay, I'm coming to join you. Can you see the questions? Yes, you can. Okay. So can you guys hear me? The first question is from Rebecca Barsetti, and it was specifically for Hillary, but I think it applies to both. She says she's a one-man show, and they place about 200 clients a year, and she's asking how it would work. She's worried that she doesn't have enough time to do all the touring that Hillary talked about, and she also wanted to know if the agency budgeted specific money to cover the expense of all those.
Okay. Well, I really do feel for you. Being a one-man show is difficult, and I've been there, so I know how you're feeling. We have an employment staff of 3 main job developers, and we resettle about, I want to say, 350 a year. So we've gotten very lucky to have 3 job developers, and I would say if you're a one-man show, what you can do is just squeeze a tour and an initial interview into the same thing. And when I say tour, I don't know if there was some sort of confusion with that, but we just honestly talk to the employer and say, you know, we'd like to come out and see your facility and have you meet the client initially. There's no cost associated with it. Maybe a bus ticket if you want the client to take the bus home on their own so they can learn the route. But typically you can go out and tour the site and meet with the employer at no cost to you, just gas money. And then you can squeeze in the initial interview right there if everything goes smoothly. That's what I would recommend.
Great, thanks. Rebecca, if that doesn't answer all your questions, feel free to type a follow-up call. The next question is from Bernice Cachette. Bernice, I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce that right. This is her question. What advice or tip would you have for an agency just initiating employment services? Ooh, that's a fun question. Kira, why don't you start, and then Hillary, and then I think Daniel and I probably are not going to be able to resist saying something. So, woo, go.
Absolutely. So we actually just recently expanded this past October. So we definitely understand what it's like to be kind of beginning the employment services and building on it. The first thing I would say is definitely contact some other individual agencies in the network and really just hear from them about the different best practices that they have. That's certainly what we did for a few different weeks and heard from a few different people, and we really found that to be helpful in understanding how we might kind of delegate the different tasks, I guess. And then, yeah, I don't know, I'd be happy to talk more about specifics. I'm not sure exactly if that kind of covers it, but that's sort of my first thought when it comes to that question.
Cool. Hillary, what can you add?
This is a great question, and I would say you have 2 paths you have to cover when you get started. You have to cover the client side and take your list of clients, make sure you get everything organized, set timelines for yourself to accomplish things for those clients. So you're not rushing the last, months that they have in your program to make sure they get a job. So keep yourself organized with your clients. And then the other track is professional. The way you need to get more employers and get started is just dive in head first. You know, go to as many job fairs as you can. Make yourself known in the community, and don't be ashamed to put yourself out there to different, even recruiting agencies or other job developers in the area. Let them know you're there and that you're forging your way, and people are more kind than they are competitive, and networks will open up to you if you make an honest effort.
Cool. That was all excellent advice. Daniel?
I would say probably if you're just getting started, you know, start simple and be realistic. And, you know, I always found that, you know, simple things like having lunch with employers one-on-one could be good. It might not be a whole event that you're putting on, but just building that relationship with whoever is your main point of contact at the company. Also looking for opportunities to jump into other things that people are doing in the community. Like it might be, you may have heard of Welcoming America and, you know, Welcoming Cities initiatives. Local government is sometimes doing things, and those are all opportunities that you can jump into and engage with employers. So that would be my additional. I think you guys already answered the question.
Yeah. Welcome. I'm excited to know that you're out there and they're just getting started, Bernice. I have to make a plug for Hire. I think you're already connected to our resources. We have so many excellent initial ideas for getting started with an employment program, reaching out to employers. Look for an email from me with a whole bunch of links and maybe even a phone call. Mm-hmm. We're looking forward to helping you more and hearing about your success as you get started. Thanks again for asking a question. The next question is from Hadia Abdul Fattar. Hi, Hadia. She's here in Baltimore. So the question is for Kira. She was listening and was assuming that most of the employers are interested in hiring just entry-level positions. And how could that model of a happy hour be implemented specifically for middle skill jobs, for higher level refugees? I think that's a great general question. What strategies specifically can be tweaked or would work better for finding beyond entry-level jobs? Karen, get started.
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Hadia. So we actually found that it has a lot to do with who you're able to kind of reach out to. So our employer advisory board was really helpful in using their own networks to invite people. And so because they all represented different industries, they were able to reach out to different industries. And so I say that to say that not everybody who was attending the event was there representing entry-level positions. We had several different members of the local hospitals who were in attendance, and they tend to hire for higher skilled positions. What I also found, though, was in networking with employers, we were able to kind of get the beginning of an understanding of what their needs were. And so for one quick example, we had an employer who attended who was mostly talking to us about entry-level general labor positions at the company that he worked at. And so after the event, we brought several different candidates, and one of them had an engineering background, but not very strong English, so we were putting him into the general labor position. But the employer actually decided to hire him in the engineering position because he really wanted to give him a chance, and he still works there right now, and he's doing really well. So that was a great success for us, and we did find that employers all have kind of different needs, so talking to them about their kind of the variation that might be within their company.
Hillary, Daniel, anybody want to weigh in with other ideas? I don't want to put you guys on the spot. If you do, say something fast. If not, I'll move on to the next question.
I think Kara covered it pretty well.
Yeah, that was a great answer. I agree. So the next question is totally different. Cool. So it's from Laura Chapman. Having lunch with employers sounds like a great idea, and she's been wanting to do this, but she says that they don't have the budget and it's not approved for her to spend organizational money on lunch. So What are some alternatives? How should she handle this? I'll just start and say that in my experience, employers knew right off the bat that we didn't have a lot of money, and the few times that I ended up in a lunchtime situation with people, they, I think, just assumed that they were going to pay, and they offered. Or the one time that I wasn't sure that would happen, we met at a super, super cheap place that I could afford, and we just ate crappy sandwiches, and it worked just as well. So what can anybody else add?
I would say I've met a lot of employers just for coffee, and you know, just in case, like for lunches I've always been in the same situation as Laurel, but I do think that meeting them for coffee kind of provides that same opportunity. You're just meeting them in a casual setting and getting the chance to just sort of just sit down in a more personal setting, I guess.
And that might feel more respectful of their time anyway, actually. Coffee, it's quick. You can ditch after 15 minutes if they feel like they've got what they need. So, yeah, good idea.
Yeah, these are all good.
I would say the same. Yeah, a lot of times coffee works fine. Lunch, like Laurel said, either, you know, a lot of times this is kind of tricky, and I would offer to pay, and I would pay if they took me up on it, but more times than not, they'd be like, oh, no, let me get this, you know, so I never had an issue with it. Hillary, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say a good alternative to lunch or to coffee if budget is extremely tight is if you have the office space, bring them back to a meeting room, you know, invite them to come to the offices. We're really lucky here in Cleveland to have our English and job readiness classes on site. So if I have a meeting with a new employer in the conference room and then they're more intrigued about meeting clients or seeing how our operations are done, I can easily walk them around the building or bring in some success stories of clients who have done well.
That's a good idea, and in fact, it might even work better because our clients engage people and sell themselves, and enticing employers to come to our offices makes maybe a more personal connection and go into a coffee shop, and it's free. So there's some ideas for you. There's sort of a related question. It's from Rebecca, who asked a question earlier and then had some technical difficulties and couldn't ask a follow-up question. She again wants to go back to costs. If there are networking events or connection groups that you're trying to be involved in, how do you cover the cost of that? Anything else to add from that slightly different perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. And frequently I will connect with different community organizations and other charities in the area that are hosting the free job fairs and free events going on. If they're charging us to go to a job fair and I don't know the lineup of the employers ahead of time, I'm not going to go to it. Just out of time management and cost management, go to the free ones that your community puts on and connect with local leaders in the area, whether that's city council or, you know, your job development team. I think each state has job development services for the public. So connect with those resources and you can find free events to attend and further your network.
Yeah, I agree. I actually never really found anything that I super wanted to attend that cost anything anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
Except for conferences.
Well, conferences, yeah, okay. But yeah, so, but I use your job development, I don't know, moxie. You're not afraid to ask people to hire refugees. Don't be afraid to ask them to comp your entrance to whatever it is you want to attend at cost. It's a little harder to ask for yourself than it is for clients, but kind of the same thing, so it never hurts to ask.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many people will, like in terms of coordinating the happy hour, it's amazing how many people are willing to donate different things to it. So if you're worried about the cost in order to make the event happen, I really say to reach out to your networks and to see what they're able to provide so that you can alleviate some of those costs.
Yep.
I had a question, since I don't see, did you have any other questions that you had seen, Laurel?
No, that's all of them.
I had a question I want to ask Kira. What types of employers or industries have you all seen come through to the happy hour events? Is it particular does it seem to cater to certain kinds of industries, or is it really a wide variety?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we touched on this a little bit, but I really was surprised and pleasantly surprised at what a wide variety it was. I think, so we saw a lot of other hotels there. We saw Chipotle. We had different general labor positions come, security positions, valet parking. Those are the ones that I have off the top of my head, but it was a pretty great variety of different levels of positions. I think something to keep in consideration if you're thinking about trying to plan an event is just the location of the event. Ours was downtown and in the afternoon, and so we did find that maybe some employers aren't really, if they're working out in the county, they're not going to want to necessarily come out into the city. And so we've thought about ways of, trying to work on this, but just something to keep in mind about who you're going to be able to get to come to your event, depending on where you decide to have it located.
This is Laurel. I'm actually a member of the IRC's Employer Advisory Board, which I'm so happy to be a part of. And another thing that we talked about was just timing, and happy hour works great. Other people have talked about breakfasts or lunchtime, and just how to be respectful of the kind of employers you're trying to attract.
Right.
And location too. Parking was a big thing in Austin. The first time we tried an appreciation event, it was a lunch. We didn't really think about parking, and some people came, couldn't find a place to park and left, and other people showed up frazzled and hot and kind of angry that downtown parking was such a nightmare. So the second time we picked some place that wasn't really as centrally located as we wanted, but had plenty of free parking, and it worked better.
That sort of answered the next question. Our employers are not the type that would be interested in a happy hour. Are there other creative events that we could do that would serve a similar function? But any other ideas you all wanted to share?
Breakfast was one that we definitely came up with. We were also thinking that the happy hour does kind of, it might eliminate some people, and it might not be in some people's interest. So breakfast is something we are considering also working on.
We didn't do this, but I was jealous of Goodwill for offering a really excellent annual event that involved everybody in the community proposing awards: best employer, strongest this, most impressive performance. And they actually had an award ceremony, and there was no food or drink involved, but people came, the press came. It was a big deal, and it always looked like something that I wish we'd beaten them to, but didn't.
Great. Hey, Hillary, I wanted to ask you a question. In terms of delivering on what you promised, what do you do when you do the needs analysis, you have a great connection, the job opportunity is there, let's say you thought you had 2 clients that were just an awesome fit for whatever reason, when you talk to them again, it's, I can't go that far away from my house, or it's too cold, or maybe they got another job and you didn't know about it. How do you handle it with employers when you don't have somebody to give them at the moment?
Sure, that's a great question, and it actually comes up fairly frequently because our clients do have their own ideas, and that's fair. I think having that trust between the employer and your agency allows you to be more honest and open with them. And if you need to come back to your office and reevaluate and you don't have any other clients and you've just met and know that there's a need for the employer, you shouldn't sit on it and wait and try and scramble to find another candidate. You should just be upfront and honest with the employer and say, I had a qualified candidate that I thought would be a great fit, but they've chosen to move on to a different opportunity. Or if you have some other line you can give them as to why this situation isn't going to work out, and then say, I'm happy to continue seeking for a qualified candidate because I want to make sure we can deliver the best services and client skills to you, and say, maybe next week I'll touch base, or we have a constant flow of clients coming in because of refugee resettlement. So odds of you coming across another client are pretty good, and it will happen within the near future.
Great. Well, those are all the questions I see. Do you guys have any other questions or things to add?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Anybody got anything else they want to ask? While we're here, why don't we try something? Daniel, click on a microphone. Let's see if we can hear Bernice, if we remove the mic. Bernice, we should be able to hear you now. Try to say something. Yay, we can hear you.
It's working.
So, introduce yourself. We haven't met yet. I'm really curious to know where you are and what you're doing.
Okay,
Sorry to put you on the spot, but
no,
we're all really what's going on.
Okay, so yeah, my name is Bernice Keshet. I'm a very new employment specialist at Church World Service in Jersey City. It's actually my 4th day in this job. And I'm just trying to, get some ideas on sort of where to get started. There seems to be a big need. I feel like a lot of our clients come to me asking for better jobs than the ones they, have now. And yeah, I guess just sort of directions on where to start, what to do first, I guess.
I think this was the perfect thing to decide to do first. Yay. Welcome. So that worked really well. We have enough time. Daniel, why don't you just...
Oh, PJ has a question.
Cool.
Yeah, let's go.
Unmute PJ and let him talk.
PJ more. Hey, PJ, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just had a question.
You should be able to talk, PJ. We just unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I just had a question, I think, for Hillary. She was talking about kind of the draft picks process and going to kind of the pre-screen clients, and a company said, hey, we've got 2 job openings, bring us some people, and you go to talk to those folks. How long do you typically tell employers, yeah, I'll get back to you with something in X many days? Because I feel like a lot of our employers are kind of reactionary and they need something pretty immediately, and then it's a big scramble, and we don't have time to do career counseling and talk about hygiene and practice interview questions. It's all pretty kind of crammed in, like on the way to the interview the next day or something like that. Can you talk about just setting expectations for employers and kind of that discipline?
Yeah, absolutely. I would have to say it's a little bit of everything combined. You do have those really quick turnaround days that you can't budge on. The employer says, hey, today's Thursday, I need somebody by Friday. And you have to scramble to get it together, but in those rare instances, that's what you have to do. Now, typically what I try and do is set up my employer meetings earlier in the week, so if they do need a placement by the end of the week, I can provide that and leave myself that middle of the week wiggle room. You can also set up employer meetings at, Thursday or Friday and promise staffing by Tuesday, Wednesday. But usually a couple days in between is plenty of time to go through that hygiene and mock interviews, things like that. Talk to them when you're doing the needs analysis and let them know realistically from the start that the people you are working with, you want to groom them to be the best candidates for the company, and that might take 2 days in between the request and the placement.
Yeah. That's really helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, while I'm on, I'd like to introduce a new hire here at World Relief Management. Her name is Hannah. Say hi, Hannah.
Hey guys, nice to meet you.
So,
Hi.
We're getting emails from Hannah or myself. Welcome her to the world of employment specialists along with refugees. She's been with us for
Awesome, welcome. What was your name again? You guys are breaking up a little bit.
My name's Hannah.
Anna. Awesome. How long have you been on the job? Just this week?
Yeah, this is my 6th day.
Wow, you beat Bernice by a whole week. So we have unmuted Carol.
Hey.
At her request, and Lindsay Saltz, I think we just unmuted you too if we did it right. Both Lindsay and Carol heard directly from Alan and some of the initial training. They're both a part of what's been going on in Colorado and Nebraska, so we thought we'd unmute them in case they wanted to be put on the spot, had a question, or wanted to weigh in on anything. Hi, ladies.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, Carol.
Okay, good. I was just going to talk about a little bit about tours. You know, it depends on your department is structured, but typically what I do is I do the needs analysis meeting with them since I'm the only job developer, and then the next step I do is I'll usually take a tour that day and then schedule a tour for all the employment specialists for both of the agencies that I represent, because I want the employer to meet the whole team, and I want them to get to know our team and see, you know, when the employment specialists all come out and they take a tour of the facility, it shows that they're not just talking to me only, but that there's a whole team supporting the candidates that we're going to bring forward. And it also helps the employment specialists to get an idea of the job site and the skills that are needed and the tasks of the job. And I think I kind of always feel like I have to sell it to the employment specialists as well, and it helps them to be able to sell it to their clients better. So I just wanted to share that because when we were talking about tours, I thought, well, yeah, tours are really important. I'm excited about this happy hour idea. Hillary, pretty much everything you talked about, except for that, is something that we tried, but I'm so excited now. I want to try this happy hour thing because we've done the lunch and learn, we've done the employer advisory committees, and we've done the appreciation luncheons and some of the other things, but happy hour is one we haven't done yet. So anyway, that's my 2 cents there.
That's great. Thanks, Carol.
Cool. I'm going to try just unmuting everybody, unless there's some crazy.
But I understand. I think you take your tickets, you put it in the paper.
So you talk, it is better.
Yeah, no problem.
Then
just, you know.
I put my ear.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and mute people again. That was a good experiment. It worked once before. So if, I think Hadia had a question or a comment. So Hadia, go ahead.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for organizing this webinar. I work for Upwardly Global, and we mainly focus on upskilling and helping skilled immigrants to obtain professional employment in their fields. So my second question is about keeping employers interested after that initial meeting. So, you know, my kind of challenge is that I meet with an employer, with their HR department, and I tell them about our work and the candidate pool that we work with. They get really excited, and once we have an action plan set, and I say, you know, I will be sending candidates on a weekly or bi-weekly basis to you, they respond to me, you know, in the first or second time, but then it kind of goes silent. So if you have any recommendations or advice on how to keep them engaged and make sure that that initial conversation becomes a permanent partnership or sustainable partnership.
Yeah, I think that can be the hardest part, is when you have this radio silence with your employers. And if they're accessible in person, I say just have the gumption to go there in person and say, hey, I was in the area, I wanted to stop by. If you have clients already placed there, say you're checking in on them, on the client's progress. And if it's a company you haven't placed anybody with yet, then just say, you know, I was in the area, I wanted to stop in and let you know I have some candidates I'd like to bring out to you. Give them a date, say this Friday, or give them a timeline. If there's radio silence and you don't feel comfortable or you can't go and see them in person, the only thing you can really do is keep continuing to call or email until there comes a point where you have to decide, is this company going to be valuable to me or not? If they're not answering, they're probably not, and then you need to just redirect your efforts to a new company that will give you the responses.
I want to add something that I learned from Carol and a couple of her employer partners at an event that she put on an employer panel for a bunch of people from LIRS. And one of the employers said something that I felt dumb for never having thought, and this was it. If I don't call you back, don't assume that I'm blowing you off. It might just mean that I'm really busy. So you can never really tell, but I think we have to be careful not to become pests, and it's sometimes hard to know. I had one really excellent high-level staffing agent contact that only placed accountants. And when I developed the contact, I had an accountant, and it didn't work out in time to connect them. It took me a year before I had another accounting client, and every once in a while I'd reach out to her, send her an excellent resume that wasn't an accountant, and just ask her, you know, if you have high-level contacts that might need this, engineer, lawyer, whatever, I'd appreciate your help passing it along. Kept her in mind, and then after a year when I had the other accountant, she actually hadn't forgotten who I was, and we were able to get the accountant in and at least screened. So you can reignite those contacts when you have the right fit, and I don't think you necessarily need to worry if you don't hear from them.
Yeah. We have employers come and present in our 2-day job readiness class, and that's been a really good way for employers who have not necessarily been able to make partnerships with our clients, but make placements, I'm sorry, with our clients, but it keeps them engaged in a way that they come and they present, and they just get to see our office a little bit. Maybe they haven't been there, so that's been a nice way for us to keep employers engaged that are not necessarily placing our clients.
That's a really good idea.
Can't remember where I heard this idea, but somewhere I heard it recommended to, when you find articles or something little, it might be like a blog post or something on LinkedIn that you think that reminds you of an employer or would be interesting to them, just saying, like forwarding it to them and saying, hey, I saw this article and I thought you'd be interested. And that could be a non-threatening way to kind of build that rapport. And also just talking about LinkedIn, if you are connected to employers on LinkedIn, LinkedIn is always giving you updates like they, I don't know, have a work anniversary, or and maybe they got a slightly different position, or maybe they post things on LinkedIn, and so you have the opportunity to like things that they post. You have the opportunity to congratulate them on their work anniversary, and just kind of you know, stay on their radar in that way.
Yeah, I really like this idea, Daniel. It has worked better, the strategies that everyone mentioned, with smaller or mid-sized companies. But when it came to building partnerships with larger companies or larger national recruiting agencies, it's been tougher because you really, I think it's a challenge to show them that the benefit of the partnership. It's free, basically free recruiting services that they're receiving from us. But at the same time, if it's a corporation or a larger organization, how to make sure that the partnership is sustainable is something that I'm still learning.
Cool. Hey, Hadia, while we have you on the line, you know, I gave Upwardly Global a little shout out in my presentation about how you guys bring in employers to do mock interviews and resume workshops and things like that. Have you guys seen that result in them hiring people from you?
Yes, so we've definitely, so when we talk about placements due to networking events or matching them with, during networking events with volunteers from different companies, I'm not sure if so. An example I would give, last year in October, we had a mock interview event with one of our partners, Accenture, with over 80 people, I think, 80 volunteers and 80 job seekers were matched virtually. And because of that event, within, I think, 8 months when we monitored our placements of those who attended, 46 of those job seekers were able to find jobs. And I believe 4 of them were through Accenture, but the rest were within different companies. So when we are kind of monitoring the results from our networking engagements, we not only look at that exact specific company, but we also look how those job seekers who attended were placed in other companies. So there are different ways to monitor results, and that was one example how we do it. But definitely having networking events where job seekers meet employers is really helpful and very motivating for job seekers and employers, because they actually meet your candidates and they make that personal connection. That is one of the strategies that we do use in order to build sustainable relationships.
Great. Yeah, that's a great employer engagement strategy. Thanks, Hadia. I'm going to go ahead and mute you again. I don't see any other hands raised here. So if you do have a comment or a question, go ahead and raise your hand, and I'll try to remember to check one more time before we finish off. But just wanted to share a few more things with you before we finish. I did include a list of additional resources for follow-up. I'm not going to go through each one of these right now, but when I share the slides with you, you should be able to click on these. I'd say 4 or 5 of them are blog posts that we've done on employer appreciation events. There was one Laurel wrote on the first IRC Employer Happy Hour, a presentation by another IRC office about job fairs that was recently done, World Refugee Day, a holiday e-card template, of course, our Online Learning Institute, which has modules on employer communication, especially for some of you who are new to the job, a couple first-week rookies. Definitely want to sign up for our Online Learning Institute. And lastly, DTG EMP, which is Alan Anderson's company. He's the consultant that gave us a one-day training last fall. And you can sign up for his webinars. They do cost money. Most of them are about $75. So I know that can be a limitation, but they are available in case some of you are at agencies that might pay for some professional development. We have an online forum. It's called Torch. It's our own internal social media platform. Most of you are members already. For those of you who are brand new to our group, I'll be sending you an invitation by the end of tomorrow, and that's where you'll be able to access slides, recordings, some conversation that we've had, a few documents. So far, there hasn't been a lot of conversation on the group, and that's okay. We know you guys are all busy. But just remember that you can write blog posts, you can ask questions, you can talk to each other. So it is there. It is available as a possible way that we can all communicate with each other. Our next call, I plan to have either in mid-September or early October, and I'll be announcing that. Look for an invitation about a month, I'd say. And if you have any ideas for a topic, go ahead and send me an email. We've covered all 4 aspects of the consultative selling model this year. And so there's not necessarily something automatic. Of course, there's a lot of facets to this, and there's definitely things that we've kind of just breezed over that we could go back to and zoom in on. We could get Alan Anderson on the line and either have a Q&A time with him or have him maybe talk about small sites. You know, I know a lot of people have talked about, well, how are we supposed to implement this when we just have 2 people? Those are a couple ideas I had, but would definitely be interested in your feedback. So please send me an email if you have a good idea about what would be helpful for our next call. As always, you can contact us directly. We're here to support you. Laurel is our program manager, and her information is there, and also my information, and Sarah Vale, our network engagement coordinator, information is there as well. So let me, as I promised, take one last look to see if anybody raised their hand. Oh, Carol has one more comment. So we'll let Carol bring us home. Go ahead, Carol.
It's just a question for Hillary. I wanted to know how much of the information that you shared today about the different methods that you have used for your building your employer relationships and maintaining them, how much of it did you take from the consultative selling model from Alan Anderson, and how much of it did you develop organically just within the course of, you know, how much of it was your own?
Sure, that's a really good question, and I would say it's about a 50-50. there were some strategies that I was trying to figure out good ways to do them, and then I didn't really solidify them until hearing Alan Anderson. You know, a lot of what he said about the needs analysis and the selling made so much of my strategy simpler and helped clarify different ways of, you know, producing your opening line and what kind of things you should be saying in these needs analysis and what things you should be looking for. So I would say Alan Anderson refined my strategies, and then most of the client work is organic just because, you know, you have to come up with creative strategies for solving client issues, and that can lead to some organizational ways of developing overall strategies that might match with more clients, if that makes sense.
Well, I mostly meant just the follow-up piece of it, because the manuals that we got didn't have a lot on the follow-up. It was more heavy on the needs analysis and the selling model, but the follow-up is most of that just strategies that you developed as needs arose.
Yeah, I would have to say that being a part of our matching grant program, we do have certain checkpoints we have to meet with 2-week reports, the 1-month check-in, things like that. But keeping in contact directly has been mostly organic. And like I mentioned before, it's gauging that relationship you have with the employer and then what the client needs as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and Carol, I just wanted to weigh in on that real quick too. Yeah, I think that Alan's information is a little light on the follow-up piece, but I think the 2 phrases that we're free to interpret and creatively apply of delivering on what we promised and delivering on and supporting what we promised, and I think that when we hear follow-up, I think there's a little bit of a language difference in kind of Alan's definition and then our definition, where we usually just think following up for retention. And so that's why I wanted to get to following up, also including delivering, kind of making sure you follow through and make that right match, and then also supporting. And how do we support? We support through some of those traditional follow-up things. We support through ongoing communication. We support through creative engagement, and then that leads us back around to prospecting. Maybe you're not prospecting with a brand new employer that's never heard of you, but you're continuing to prospect with the contacts that you have and finding those jobs. So kind of building out from how we usually think of follow-up and kind of amplifying it to be multifaceted. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't see any more questions, so thanks so much for attending, everybody. Thank you again to our speakers, Hillary and Kira. Thank you for all of your comments and questions, and thank you, Laurel, for moderating questions for us today. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.